This is the Apple Watch Ultra, the first Apple Watch that actually looks different in years, and one that costs as much as the iPhone 14 at $800. And right off the bat, you can tell that this one is special, with the documentation and paperwork giving you an illustrated look at the watch's new features and design. So we've got two different boxes, one for the watch and one for the band. We'll open up the watch's box first, where to fit in with a whole rugged and adventure theme, we have GPS coordinates to precisely the center of Apple's headquarters printed here, and then unlike the typical Apple Watch charger, the one included with the Ultra feels a lot more premium with this braided finish to it, which, at $800, it better. But here is the Apple Watch Ultra itself. And this thing looks totally different from what we're used to seeing. Instead of curved glass, the glass here is completely flat up top, which is supposed to help make it more durable according to Apple. And while we have the same crown and button layout on the right side, both the crown and that side button are definitely bigger. I want to say the crown is at least 150% the size, and it does make turning the crown a lot easier to do. On the left side, we have the biggest speaker grill we've ever seen on an Apple Watch, along with the exclusive to the Ultra action button, which we'll talk about more in a sec. Finally, underneath, we have the new sensor array, which now includes a body temperature sensor, just like it does on the new Series 8. Okay, now, while I'm not the biggest fan of the orange colored accents here on the Ultra, after opening up the new watch band and slapping it on my wrist, it's actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And the watch itself also doesn't look nearly as bulky as it seemed in Apple's footage, at least here on my wrist. And more importantly, it doesn't feel bulky either. I've been using the Series 7 for the last year, and honestly, I can barely feel the difference with this on my wrist instead. Now, regardless of how you feel about this big ol' orange action button here, the functionality of it is really cool, since you can customize the button to do a number of different things. For example, you can set it to where a single press can start the stopwatch, with additional presses allowing you to mark a lap, and then a combo of the action button plus the side button lets you both pause and resume it. But even for those of us who aren't all about that active life, the action button can still be useful. You can set it to do things like just turning on the flashlight or to a Siri shortcut, which to me changes the game, since the opportunities with Siri shortcuts are pretty much endless. Okay, while on the spec sheet, the Ultra screen size is only marginally bigger than the Series 7 and the Series 8, in reality, it feels a lot bigger than that, since with the flat edges, more of the display is actually usable, whereas on the Series 7 and 8, that curved part was mostly just for aesthetic purposes. And the display itself here is the best ever on an Apple Watch, with it having twice the peak brightness of up to a crazy 2000 nits. And in the dark, there's also that new nighttime mode where you can turn the crown on the Wayfinder watch face and change everything to red to help minimize how much light is being emitted from the display. The Apple Watch Ultra also has an 86 decibel siren that Apple says can be heard from up to 600 feet away. It starts off at a low volume to kind of act as a warning in case you accidentally trigger it, before progressively getting louder and louder in order to attract attention in the case of an emergency. Now, while this watch is definitely marketed towards people who lead an active lifestyle, with it being ultra rugged, recording depth when submerged in water, and having pretty much the most accurate GPS on any watch, the reality is a good chunk of people who end up buying this aren't going to use any of that stuff. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the watch isn't worth it even in that context, since one thing that everybody could appreciate is better battery life, with the Ultra lasting twice as long as the Series 8. And with the watch actually looking different, for somebody who's been using the Apple Watch for years and just wants to change things up, this one is pretty nice. And I don't know, there's just something special about having probably the most advanced smartwatch on earth on your wrist. But then again, it costs as much as an iPhone 14, so I think a lot of people will still be fine with just the regular Apple Watch they already have.